the recording. There, now we're recording. P'tach libi b'toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha tirdof nafshi. P'tach libi b'toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha tirdof nafshi. P'tach libi b'toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha tirdof nafshi. Open up my heart to your Torah, and your mitzvot will flow through my soul. P'tach libi b'toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha tirdof nafshi. La 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 P'tach libi b'toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha tirdof nafshi. P'tach libi b'toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha tirdof nafshi. So literally, actually, this translates as open up my heart with your Torah, b'toratecha, by means of your Torah. U'v'mitzvotecha tirdof nafshi. And what is spiritually imperative, my life's breath chases after that, runs after that. So just feel your nefesh this morning, your life breath filling your body. And also that breath empties back out into the breath of the world. P'tach libi, open up my heart. Mitzvotecha, by means of everything that life brings to me, let it be heart opening. B'toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha tirdof nafshi. P'tach libi, let life open up my heart. B'toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha tirdof nafshi. So just a little shtickle of Torah this morning, a little further teaching. So we are standing at the foot of Mount Sinai this week in the Torah. And actually, the text says we are standing under Mount Sinai, b'tachtich, and they stood under the mountain. It's usually translated at the foot of, but there are a couple of different ways of hearing under the mountain in our tradition, in the Midrash, the legendary, the stories of the ancient sages, that either we stood under the mountain because it was as if we were at our own wedding, and the mountain is the chuppah, and the Torah that we receive at the mountain is our ketubah, our wedding contract with the divine. So that's one way of looking at it. And the other way of looking at it is that God is holding the mountain over our head. It's kind of a shotgun wedding. If you don't accept my Torah, I'm going to drop this on you, and that's it. You're going to be gone. So personally, I like the first interpretation better. But the truth is that oftentimes the teachings that life brings to us are awesome and fearsome. And we read in the Torah that the people were afraid. They say, we're going to accept what you offer us here, but Moses, we'd rather hear it from you, and we're going to stand back because the mountain is smoking and the mountain is wreathed in flames and the voice is thunderous. So I think it's powerful to recognize that the Torah that comes to us, sacred and heart-opening as it may be, sometimes first shuts us down. In fact, it says in the text that every single person saw the voice, saw the thunder. It was as if the ears could not yet take in. It's too much. The senses are confounded sometimes. This divine instruction can be overwhelming. And maybe we go numb, and maybe we recoil. Another midrash says that each sound of the divine voice, the people recoiled 12 miles and had to be picked up. They expired and had to be picked up by angels and carried back to the mountain. And later, a few chapters down the road, the people say, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do it and we will hear, or we will do it and later we'll understand. Such a powerful metaphor for the healing journey. Sometimes we're thrust into the healing, and it's only down the road, much later, over time, that we can integrate and begin to understand the teaching and bring it fully into our lives. So that's part of my prayer this morning as we continue to grapple with all that's happening in our world. Can we allow ourselves to be upended by life and yet keep our hearts open so that the teachings can be absorbed and gradually understood? We can stand under the teachings, under the mountain, understand our lives. So I wanted to share a poem with you this morning that actually came last week. It's a Tu B'Shvat kind of poem. In a way, it's more than that, but it has a tree in it. And it's so beautiful that I thought I would bring it as we continue to honor the trees. We don't forget them, even though Tu B'Shvat is past. This is a poem about a tree and a wave. So we're going to move from treeness to waveness today. It's by W.S. Merwin, Zichrono Livracha, and it's called Recognitions. Stories come to us like new senses. A wave and an ash tree were sisters. They had been separated since they were children, but they went on believing in each other, though each was sure that the other must be lost. They cherished traits of themselves that they thought of as family resemblances, features they held in common. The sheen of the wave fluttered in remembrance of the undersides of the leaves of the ash tree in summer air, and the limbs of the ash tree recalled the wave as the breeze lifted it. And they wrote to each other every day without knowing where to send the letters, some of which have come to light only now, revealing in their old but familiar language a view of the world we could not have guessed at, but that we always wanted to believe. So just inviting you to awaken your nefesh, your embodied breath self a little bit more right now, maybe a little bit of stretching and breathing. Last week in our healing circle, we found our treeness. And today I'd like to invite us to find our waveness. And the breath brings both our treeness and our waveness. Our treeness makes food out of light, and our waveness brings us water, fluid in the body. The blessing of water, and our Torah portion brings us Torah, and often Torah is compared to water, to the ocean, to the waves of the ocean. Just finding a little bit of side to side waveness. Where are the waves flowing, rolling in your body this morning? Can you find waves all the way down into your legs and toes and pelvis? I just kind of put my weight on my feet, stood up from my chair so that I could find a full body wave. So maybe you want to start at your feet and let the wave ripple up through your ankles, calves, knees, and hips, through your spine, through your arms. Maybe that ripple upwards is an inhale, and the flow downwards an exhale. Rippling all the way up and all the way down, as far as your body is comfortable going. Or maybe your ripple up is an exhale and your ripple down is an inhale. Try that. See how it's different? The in-breath perhaps gives you more of your tree, your density, the out-breath more of your wave. Or maybe the in-breath gives you more of your flow and the out-breath more of the light. See how it works for you. And then let's find the fluttering of the leaves, not just through your hands and arms, but maybe through your whole body, your spine, your organs, your face and head, just a little bit of that fluttering. The fluttering wakes up our connective tissue so that we can begin to feel connected within ourselves and to the world. So just feeling connected to your own, within your own space. And then finding some connections with us on the screen. Finding a moment of stillness. Perhaps holding that stillness in a shape of your body that's not so usual for you. And see if you can feel the ash tree and the wave at the same time. The rootedness and the flow. The stillness and the movement. The in-breath in the out-breath and the out-breath in the in. Beautiful. And just coming back to our screens and our spaces together, our quietness. So I want to teach you a new little chant this morning. I'm going to put it in the chat because it's not on your sheet. It's an Ahava chant, Ahava and Torah, love and Torah. So here I'm going to place it in the chat for us. Ahava, 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 Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah Ahavtanu. So with a great love, 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 with a great love you have loved us, we remind ourselves that the instruction that comes to us comes from love. Torah limadita, you have given us instruction, you have taught us. And that even though sometimes the instruction doesn't feel loving, it's actually instructions for practice. Not so much rules, but instruction for how to practice in our lives, how to grow into understanding. So it goes like this. It climbs. Ahava, 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 Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah Avtanu. That's the first line. So let's do it a few times together. Ahava, Ahava, Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah Avtanu, Ahava, Ahava, Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah Avtanu. Ahava, Ahava, Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabhavtanu. So you can kind of feel how we're climbing up the mountain on this, and then we're bringing the Torah back down the mountain. So the second line goes like this. Torah limadita, Torah limadita, Torah, Torah, Torah limadita, Torah limadita, Torah, Torah, Torah limadita, Torah limadita, Torah, Torah. So while the first one climbs us up the mountain, the second line gives us more of that wave-like flow as we integrate the Torah into our present moment. So we'll sing it a few more times. The first line and then the second line. And this was actually meant to be sung in parts together, and there's actually a third part. So I am praying as I sing. I'm holding the hope and the intention that there will be a time not so distant in the not so distant future when we can come together and some of us and sing this simultaneously, the parts. So for right now, we sing them separately. Ahava, Ahava, Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah, Tanu again, Ahava, Ahava, Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah, Tanu. Second line. Torah limadita, Torah limadita, Torah, Torah, Torah limadita, Torah limadita, Torah, Torah, Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah Tanu, Ahava, Ahava, Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah Tanu. This breathing. When we sing at the top of our lungs, I love that expression, we're bringing the air all the way up to the top tips of our lungs. And it creates a lot of vibration in the body. So just feeling as you breathe, that vibration amplified, moving in your body, moving into the parts of you that are needing this energy of healing this morning. We're going to continue to chant as we bring the Shema, Shema into our awareness, the listening, the receiving of the oneness. And we're going to chant it Sufi style this morning, Zikr style, remembering the oneness. So if you want to join me in this kind of rocking movement as we chant, we're going to rock to the left, Shema Yisrael, to the right, Havaya Eloheinu, and then twice to the center, Havaya Echad, Havaya Echad. So if you can find this, it's a comforting kind of rocking, and it awakens the energy from the base of your pelvis, or if you're standing, from your feet. And we'll find the rhythm of it and just a kind of a drone. Shema Yisrael Havaya Eloheinu Havaya Echad Havaya Echad. Shema Yisrael Havaya Eloheinu Havaya Echad Havaya Echad. Shema Yisrael Havaya Eloheinu Havaya Echad Havaya. Feel the wave. Shema Yisrael Havaya Eloheinu Havaya Echad Havaya Echad. 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 Again in stillness, feeling the wave continue to move in you. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Perhaps we can imagine the healing this morning energy as a wave coursing through our bodies, a glittering wave, catching the light and flowing wherever it's needed in you, flowing through you out into the space around you, flowing to the beloved ones, flowing to the neighbors, flowing to the strangers. Perhaps you can imagine this wave flowing out across the earth, flowing all the way to the people of Myanmar. Every night at 8 o'clock, coming out of their homes and banging their pots and pans and honking their horns to protest the takeover of their government. We send them healing, this healing wave. We send it to our capital, to Washington, D.C., and to places across our country. Where people are confused and angry, committing acts of violence. And we chant our healing chant, a prayer for an opening of the heart to what life brings so that we can support one another and support ourselves. This is number 26 on our sheets or in the chat. And then we'll open the space after we chant for names to be brought, to be typed into the chat. You can do that now if you wish as well, or to be said aloud in a moment. From deep within the home of our souls, now let the healing begin. Ana elna refana la, Ana elna refana la. Heal our bodies, open our hearts, awaken our minds. Hey, yeah. Heal our bodies, open our hearts, awaken our minds. So if you would like to unmute and have names resonate into the space or to write them into the chat.
Loie Gale.
Avraham Ben Malka.
Chandana.
I want to add this morning the names of Yehudit Bat Krendel, Judith Margolis, who had kidney surgery this week, Miriam Esther, Anna El Atara from our community, Nancy Leora Levy, Ruchel Drera Bat Heshahinda Umordechai Isaiah, Chava Rachel Bat Batsheva, Veharav Shmuel Avraham. Avraham Ben Malka was already mentioned this morning, Sarah Bat Natalie, Rabbi Jonathan Omerman, Rabbi Lori Klein and the spiritual care team at Stanford Hospitals for all the work they're doing to bring healing and help to COVID patients and their families. Lainey Barbanel Shipper, Malka Davida HaKohen Bat Hadassah, Sulam Susan Freundlich, Barbara Zilber, Maury Zilber, Hahazan Natan Shlomo Ben Necha Menachem Mendel, Chazan Richard Kaplan, Cantor Robert Michael Esformis, Harav Yachya Avraham Ben Miriam, Shawel Yidel Ben Chaya Rezel, Shamaya Bat Ruth, Harav Aharon Ben Tova, Rabbi Art Levine, Heal their bodies, open their hearts, awaken their minds. Heal our bodies, open everyone's bodies, open our hearts, awaken our minds, all of us.
Joseph.
So, I mentioned last week that I've been thinking about a different kind of prayer for our country.
I'll be out in a minute, okay? That's very cool.
Just asking everyone to please remember to mute. Yeah. So I have put together an effort for a new prayer for our country. Let's see if I can find it here to put in the chat. Mm. Hmm. So I'm calling this, it's too long. Oh gosh. I'll put it in bit by bit. Thank you for continuing to breathe and be with the healing energy. Okay, there we go. And I'll send a copy of this out, although still working on it, so it's in process. And I'm calling this healing prayer for an unfinished country. So the words come from two places. In the Tanakh, the first line is from the prophet Amos, a familiar line. Vaigal kamayim mishpat, v'tzedakah kanachal eitan. It's often translated, let justice roll out like waters and righteousness like a mighty river. And then the next section comes from the book of Leviticus in Parashat Kedoshim, and also has some familiar words in it, ending with Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha ani yud he vav he. And you should love your fellow being as yourself, for I am God. So let's just read the English together, and by next week I'll have a transliteration and we can all read the Hebrew together as well. And of course, you're reading it in mutedness and I'm reading it so we can hear. And here we go. Let the playing fields of our land be leveled, as if by a rolling flood, a powerful torrent. May equity not be perverted, neither by pitying the poor, nor by kowtowing to the wealthy. Rather, teach us to treat one another with unfailing righteousness, not spreading lies about the other or simply standing aside as they are harmed. Help us to know that we are all of God. give us the courage not to harbor fear nor hatred of others in our hearts, but rather to speak up against wrongdoing and injustice, lest we ourselves bear the responsibility of that wrong. Open our hearts to those alongside whom we live, so that someday we may come to love them as we love ourselves, so that perhaps someday we may come to truly love ourselves and to know all this world as divine. So I'm going to continue to be working with this. There's so much in this prayer and in these words of Torah and Tanakh. And I invite us to, perhaps I'll be using this as a meditation, and we'll enter it more deeply week by week, and perhaps add or change it as we go. And we open our awareness now to those beloveds who are no longer with us in body, all those who have died in the past week, as our COVID mortality rate is now pushing up to 450,000 souls departed this planet. And we also hold in our hearts those who have passed from this life in the past week and weeks from other causes, and those whose yard sites we're observing who passed at this time in years gone by. So taking a moment to open your heart, your body, your memory, to bring those names, to write them in the chat, or take a moment to speak them aloud if you want to unmute.
Adam Doohan, Morton Felix,
Naharit Kani Ryder.
My nephew Rock.
I want to add Chaplain Judith Summerstein, Eleanor Bat Shmuel Visara, mother of Dan Howard, Nechama Bat Chaim Ve'elka, the mother of Rabbi
You?
Hila Razel, Raphael, Magid Yitzhak Buxbaum, Jeffrey Adam Mintz, and I see that Herb has put into the chat that the House of Delegates in Virginia joined the Senate to abolish the death penalty. And so that is something to be thankful for, even as we mourn our losses. Please rise in body or spirit if you wish to with me, and unmute, and we'll say the Kaddish prayer together. Number 30 on the sheet.
Just press that button.
That's good.
Let's see if I'm through.
Yitzhak,
Now they're saying the blessing.
החיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישמעאל, כל יושבי תבל, ויראו.
Amen. Well, that's the translation.
May that which makes harmony in the cosmos above us, around us, bring peace within and between us, and to all who dwell on this earth. And we say, Amen.
Amen.
So if you want to mute for just one more second, and you can stay on for another moment, I'll read us out with a poem that's in this week's contemporary commentary from the Women's Torah Commentary. Perhaps many of you have this beautiful commentary on the Torah text, completely put together by women and with the voices of women. And this poem is a translation of a poem by Hava Pinchas Cohen, translation by my colleague in Los Angeles, Rabbi Miriam Glazer. It's called The Ineffable Name. Everyone's gone to the mount already, and they're waiting to see, waiting in great quiet. Even strangely, the camels and the donkeys. In this quiet, not a bird twitters, or children on their father's shoulders, an overwhelming quiet, as if before some wondrous thing. Still, I wanted time to hang out the laundry, time for myself to freshen up, and I warmed the baby's milk so he won't get hungry and, God forbid, cry at the wrong moment, however long till then. You can expect the laundry to dry, but the baby, no one knew. And I saw that a soft breeze, like the breath of a sleeping man, passed through the laundry and ballooned the belly of my nightgown, and the Sabbath tablecloth was a white sail in the middle of the desert, and we left there on the sky blue far away to the place where we'll split open pomegranates and eat their juice, to the place where love is the ineffable name. So I bless us on this Shabbat of receiving Torah. And sometimes we forget that the Torah goes on giving us Torah and more Torah for months and years at the foot of Mount Sinai, and then for millennia as we continue to read these words and grapple with them. That this Shabbat will remind us that the ineffable name is a name of love, ahava, and that we can find and feel and open our hearts to that love. B'Torah techa, by means of this Torah, each of our lives, the Torah of each of our lives. So let's unmute and wish each other a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi Diane.
Shalom.
Thank
How
you.
exquisite.
Good Shabbos.
Good job.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you,
Good
Diane.
Shabbos. Thank you so much, love.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
This is beautiful.
Beautiful.
I love the way
I love
she
her.
makes reference to what's going on
Always.
in our world, but
But
she doesn't.
Right.